Some news here on Bengals Breakdown. The Bengals have announced the two newest Ring of Honor members. Chad Johnson and Boomer Esiason will join the Ring of Honor for the Bengals when they play the Rams on Monday Night Football early on in the season. Those are the two newest ones. There will be more still to come. My theory of Chris Collinsworth getting into his Monday night games, not Sunday night, so he had time to do it, ends up being incorrect. But I'm certainly not going to complain about Ocho Cinco and Boomer going into the Bengals Ring of Honor. So everyone show them some love in the comments section by typing in congrats. It's a big deal for those two as the Bengals slowly but surely begin to add some much-needed Ring of Honor additions to the team as a newish feature. Everyone spam congrats for me in the comments section. We're going to talk trade rumors now for the rest of today's show. Now, Fansided put together 3 trade candidates for the Bengals. We talk about what people are talking about. This got people talking, so we'll discuss it. So don't blame me when the names pop up, especially the second one. First up is Jonah Williams, the assumed right tackle starter. This is a player who had legitimate trade conversations around him. The Bengals had listened to offers, including to teams like the Jags. They had talks with them at the NFL draft, But I don't think the two sides ever really got all that close. And Williams kind of said, okay, I'm going to retract my quote-unquote trade request and be happy being there at the right tackle spot. But here's the argument from Fansided. It's doubtful that Cincinnati would trade Williams at this point, since he's being counted on to start at right tackle. But if another team is desperate enough and willing to part with some decent draft picks, this can't be ruled out. I don't see this happening. A, him being traded. B, a team moving the draft capital required to make it make sense for Cincinnati. This always annoys me. If you're doing trade candidates, mention somewhere the trade value. Like, what is decent? Is decent a third? Is decent a fourth? Does it have to be a first or a second? Because what that trade pick is drastically impacts what type of interest me, and I know many of you, would have in terms of moving on from your assumed starter at right tackle. Now, maybe in the event that Williams just really struggles on the right side, the Bengals could be like, this isn't going to work for us, but maybe they'll make him a backup since, they've learned that O-line depth also super duper important. The biggest issue why a trade won't go down, I believe, and why it hasn't gone down, or at least didn't go down, is the money. Jonah Williams is due $12.6 million this season. After the way he played last year, I'm not sure there are a bunch of teams lining up to say, this guy allowed 12 sacks last season. Let's give him $1 million per sack allowed. I don't think that's a very feasible, realistic situation the Bengals find themselves in. The biggest savings you would have had if you had moved Jonah Williams before the draft, etc., would have been the salary cap savings. I don't think you were going to command a premium pick. So at this point, allow him to ride out the season. So in general, will the Bengals make a trade before the season begins, even if that's just roster cut down time? 1 for yes, 0 for no. This is today's pinned comment. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. 1 for yes, 0 for no. I know what you're going to say. Just let me get through it first. T. Higgins was next up on this fan-sided list. Other teams and fans of other teams have wanted to trade for Higgins all offseason long, and the Bengals have said no. Here's what Fansided wrote, and they at least mentioned the trade value, so I'll give them half credit for that one. If a team is on part with a first or second rounder for Higgins, the Bengals would have to strongly consider dealing him. They could find a cheaper receiver to replace him with those picks, then have plenty of money to pay Burrow, Chase, and maybe Wilson as well. So first off, here we go again. Annoying to me. Stop trying to trade T. Higgins. Don't get rid of great football players when you're in the square middle of a Super Bowl window. Couple big things here from that quote from Fansided. Number 1, first or second rounder, 2 very different things. It should be a first and more. It should be an A.J. Brown caliber package if you're trading away T. Higgins. It doesn't make sense to give up on him for just the second-round pick to replace him with a better player. With who? You're going to wait a year and then kind of waste the season of not having Higgins? That doesn't make any sense. Also, saving money, You're not saving money right now. Higgins not making that much. So from a here and now perspective, doesn't actually make any sense. Now, if you want to keep T. Higgins on the Bengals, just like I do, hit that sub button right now. I have no desire to keep Higgins or trade Higgins. Worst case, I'll just franchise tag him so he doesn't leave. Hit that sub button if you agree with me right now. Higgins has been a 1,000-yard receiver, and as one of you pointed out in the mailbag, and it was a fair point, that's the floor for Higgins. We know he's at least a 1,000-yard receiver. He can be even more than that. And yes, Higgins is going to be very expensive. He's probably going to command $24-ish million, maybe even $25 million, since the salary cap continues to rise. Like, he can put up DJ Moore numbers. He's put up DJ Moore numbers. He's worth at least that amount of money. But at McLaurin numbers, even sometimes DK Metcalf numbers, not the same explosiveness as Metcalf, but he's been awesome. The Bengals have, I would argue, the best or worst case second best if you just want the speed of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They have that top-tier wide receiver duo in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You have a franchise guy in Joe Burrow. I don't know about you guys. I'm not trying to get rid of top 15-ish players at their position. I think that's just a bad idea, all things considered. Then we have another wide receiver on the Fansided list. Now, Tyler Boyd is due $8.9 million in what I believe will likely be his last year in Cincinnati, unless he decides to take a significant pay cut next offseason to remain. But of the three, there is a little bit more sensibility and feasibility involved here. So, again, I don't think any guy gets dealt. But if you had to pick one, I'll make it very challenging on you and myself as well. Pick one if you have to trade him. W for Jonah Williams, H for T. Higgins, B for Tyler Boyd. Who are you moving on from? Go vote in the comments. I doubt in the end any of them end up getting moved. But Tyler Boyd might be the most doable in the sense that the Bengals don't want to trade away T. Higgins. I don't think there's that much interest in Jonah Williams' contract, despite the savings being kind of appealing there. And that kind of leaves Boyd as kind of the last man standing from that perspective. So here's what Fansided wrote on the Tyler Boyd trade idea they came up with. That being said, if a team suffered an injury at wide receiver and the return haul was decent, again, what does decent mean? It does not tell me anything. It wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world for to trade Boyd. They're probably not going to re-sign him given the other contracts they have coming up to address, so if they can get something in return for him, it could make sense. There's the big issue with Boyd and all three of these guys on today's show, and I constantly remember what Duke Tobin said, I believe it was on the Pat McAfee show, and I'm paraphrasing here. We're not going to trade away players who can help us win now because they might not be here next year. That's Tyler Boyd to me. Have his numbers regressed the last 4 seasons? Yes. Yes, they have. Is that in part because he's now the third option? Yeah, of course. That's okay. The Bengals have some good players at wide receiver that I think long-term could replace Tyler Boyd. I'm a big fan of Charlie Jones' game. I'm excited about him. And maybe there's a scenario in which Charlie Jones looks so good as a 4th-round rookie, the Bengals want to give him away to get on the field. That's very unlikely. That's the only scenario that I think actually does make some sense from a Tyler Boyd trade. So in the end, keep all 3 guys and see if you can't win that elusive Super Bowl this season.